This is an interesting panel because, well, you know why. Media in our country generally marginalizes minorities, anyone who's different than whoever rules the media. There's a lot of tokenism, right? There's a lot of mischaracterization. Everyone kind of knows that. It's almost a given. So where do people go to talk story that's uniquely local? We live in a very special place, Hawaii, because this is still a living, breathing native culture here. I mean, there are many people on these islands that do not believe in the legitimacy of the United States government here. And there are many people that do. There are like lots of different opinions. You can't say there's one Hawaiian opinion. I mean, how can you say there's one Native American opinion or an African American opinion? We're all people, we're all different. But our job as public access centers is to let everybody come in and say anything they want, uncensored, unfiltered, so that we can talk to each other. It's really the only place you can do that. Anyone go to the app panel yesterday? Social media panel? Though I learned some stuff about Facebook that just blew my mind yesterday. You know, not only the data mining that goes on, but all the little hidden charges if you want people to really see what you posted on Facebook. And some naive people think that the internet or Facebook or social media is going to solve all these problems. Let me tell you, it doesn't. So these paradigms are extremely valuable. And so I want to start this, first I want to start the panel by having our panelists introduce themselves. And then we're going to show a video, and we'll start off with Donnie. So to my left is Donnie Dawson. She's the Hawaii Film Commissioner. I think of her as a goddess, actually.
Oh, stop.
She is fabulous. When people come here to make movies.
I'm a soldier.
Yeah, when she comes here to make movies, what Donnie in a very nice way tries to let them know that this is not about hula and coconuts and pineapples. You know? I mean, did anyone see that horrible movie, Aloha? Good, nobody saw it, yeah. Right? I mean, these stereotypes that that big companies bring here to like stereotypes, to sell those stereotypes back to the mainland is really unbelievable. So Donnie, I'll have you introduce yourself in a second, but to my right is Yvonne Williams, who really, she's one of my heroes because she's out doing outreach to all the different diverse communities in Oahu. Oahu is an amazing, well, didn't they call Oahu the gathering place? Mm-hmm. Like the melting pot? I mean, everyone sort of came here. And you wonder why, you read about other places in the world where, if you go to this island, the cannibals will eat you or the people will kill you. In Hawaii, they said aloha. You ever figure out why? Why was it different? Because you couldn't get here. Before air travel, when anyone in Hawaii saw somebody arrive here, they said, wow, you must be hungry. You've come a long way. So I'm going to say aloha to you. I'm going to help you. That's tangible here in Hawaii. So Yvonne is, I think, the spirit of aloha for Olelo. She's out there, and Sparky, you as well. You're out there in the Oahu community bringing in audiences and bringing in participants into your PEG that people don't see on any of the other Oahu channels. They don't see them. I mean, all kinds of constituencies. And that is so, so important. I went to the legislature a couple years ago, and I was called up in front of a legislator, and he said, and he also called up the then CEO of Olelo, and he said, I've been told by highly reputable sources that only 30 people watch Olelo, the Hawaii, Oahu PEG station. And only 4 people watch that station on Maui. What do you think of that? And I said, well, first of all, I don't know where you got the statistics from, probably from the cable company. You didn't let me look at the data. And let's say you're right. Maybe that's true. And maybe you took that poll at 4 o'clock in the morning on Super Bowl Sunday. Right? Maybe, let's say that's true. What if the show on Olelo was about, it's a kid that's addicted to crystal meth with a judge and the mother. And the 30 people that watch that show, maybe that show saved somebody's life or inspired somebody to change their life in a positive direction. Does that mean anything to you, Mr. Legislator? He said, okay, go sit down. The whole idea that our whole perspective is different than, say, commercial or even non-commercial TV. It's so different. And to have to keep explaining that to people sometimes gets kind of annoying. So what we do is very important. So what Yvonne does is extremely important, and she has some unique points of view on how to serve these audiences and bring people in. Because it's not just showing people stuff, but it's bringing people in to use the resource. And then to my far right is another person who I greatly admire, Antoine Haywood, who is currently working in Philadelphia. Philadelphia for 40 years tried to get access channels and they couldn't get them. And this is the city of brotherly love now. Now they have it, and they have a very vibrant organization. If you get on the web and check out their operation, what I really like about their operation is because it's new and because it's probably learned from some of the best around the country, they have a very progressive and a very well thought out approach to their structure and how they do things. Because a lot of our organizations, some like the one on Maui is like 23 years old. Alelo is what, how old? 30 maybe? 30 years? Yes, and I don't know about Fresno. I don't know how long you've been around, but 4? Oh, so you're kind of new. So I kind of like the new organizations because they can take advantage and streamline and maybe get out of some old moldy ways of thinking. So I really have a lot of respect for the Philadelphia operation. So I've done enough talking. So first we're going to show a clip. And this clip, because it's going to, I think, maybe jumpstart you, Donnie. I first arrived in Hawaii in 1993. I just got off the boat. I mean, I don't know anything about Hawaiian culture, except that I respected it. And the people that I work for said, you know, there's something really cool going on in Oahu this weekend, and we'd like you to go videotape it. I go, what's that? They said, well, this is the 100th anniversary of the overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom by the United States government. And the Hawaiians are going to be marching down Waikiki. And I said, wow, that's really cool.
Honolulu. Yeah,
Right.
Iolani Palace.
Yeah, to the palace. Actually, they were marching from the palace. It might have been, there were a couple of different ceremonies. I'm not sure which one it was, but it was a march.
We'll see in a minute.
So, yeah, you'll see in a minute, because you'll know all the people. So I don't know anybody, and I'm the only haole there. There's 5,000 Hawaiians and me, right? And of course, they bring me to the king. So I thought Bumpy Kanahali was the king, because somebody told me he was.
And Cameron Crowe called him a king in Aloha, the film.
And I hate to admit this because it sounds kind of disrespectful, but it isn't, because it's really what happened. They bring me to this limousine, picks me up at the airport. Big white limo. In the limo are 2 very large men. They're not Hawaiians. They're Samoan, maybe Tongan. I don't know. And I get this mafia vibe. Then they take me to the king. So I go, are you the king? He goes, yeah, I the king. I said, oh, that's cool. How long is it going to take you to get your kingdom back? Oh, maybe 2-3 years. I said, wow. So I'm really impressed. I'm with the new king of Hawaii. In 2 or 3 years, they're going to have their kingdom back, and this is going to be great. So all the way from the airport to pick up the king to the Iolani Palace, we're stopping at different liquor stores, and we're picking up something. It wasn't liquor. I think it was pogs. People were like trading pogs. Remember those little pog things? So I don't know what's going on, but I'm not really that comfortable with this king guy. And then I found out later that there's like a lot of different kings and a lot of different queens, and I don't know which king and which queen is what. And even 2 weeks ago on Alelo, there was a 24-hour broadcast, or 24 hours, I think, broadcast of, what's the name of the group, Sparky, that the Constitutional Convention? Right. So Alelo broadcast all of that. And then some people came up to us on Maui and said, well, you could broadcast the opposite point of view, because we have the opposite point of view, so we broadcast that. So we had 2 different competing versions of what what an independent Hawaii should look like running on our channels at the same time, which was cool. So now I'm thinking, maybe there's a way to use these different versions and show them to each other so people can like maybe communicate a little bit better instead of like dividing. But divide and conquer is still a very popular concept here in America. Not just here in Hawaii. So I want to show the clip because I think it'll make, Donnie, it'll send you back in time, but it'll also I think what it illustrates for me is like my thing was I'm not gonna editorialize this. I'm not gonna put a voice on it over, and I'm not trying to put it in context. What I'm gonna do is just point the camera and let the Hawaiians speak, which I think is one of the best things you can do whenever you're dealing with any group of people that need to be given voice. I don't think you should talk over them or talk for them, but let them speak and help them to speak. So we'll run that clip, and then we'll proceed with the panel.
We had a tribunal, and this commemorates the tribunal. The U.S. was put on trial for its crimes against us as an indigenous people. And they're found guilty.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
What's the key to justice?
It's returning the spirituality, the Aina, to the people. That is justice, to make right all the wrongs. As President Cleveland did 100 years ago today is 100 years of the commemoration that Cleveland addressed Congress and said that an act of war was done on a peaceable people. That is us. We are here to commemorate that 100 year of the declaration that our sovereign nation was overthrown.
You know, we were just talking about the issue of truth. And in our search for that truth, we must not be content until we learn everything. Part of the story is not enough. There's an old saying, a wise saying, it says, a little knowledge is very dangerous. And it's true. So we as one people, we owe it to our ancestors, and we owe it to our children and our future generations, and we owe it to Hawaii to know everything we need to know before we make all of the decisions. In our quest for sovereignty, in our quest for justice, and knowing the truth. Knowing the truth will bring all of the answers that we're looking for.
This gentleman was a renowned kumuhula in Hawaii for many, many years. I don't know if there's any video that exists. I put this on YouTube, and his family called me. They were so appreciative. And this is called the Green Rose Hula. Donnie, it's all yours.
Aloha mai kako. As Jay said, my name's Donnie Dawson. I am Kanaka Maoli, Native Hawaiian, born and raised. My ancestors were lived in Honolulu at the time of the overthrow of the monarchy. My grandmother was born in 1896. My great-grandmother prior to that. So, you know, we know the history. We know the history as a people, as members of my family, etc. But the rest of the world doesn't really have a good handle on the history of Hawaii and the truth about our culture and the truth about our people. In my professional career, I have headed the film office since 2001. And prior to that, I was a journalist and producer. I sit on the advisory committee for Pacific Islanders in Communications, which is one of the National Minority Consortium, which you may be familiar. I was a board member for about 10 years. And we are publicly funded through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting with the intention of supporting our Pacific Islander Indigenous voices. PIC launched a first ever Hawaiian Media Makers Conference a year ago, October. And I think the sentiment, and I won't get into detail with regard to the work that I do at the film office in terms of facilitating production throughout the state that comes from all types of productions from all over the world. I don't want to take up too much time talking about that. It is a daunting challenge trying to find that balance between supporting the needs of production that are coming here to make their films with the needs of our community, and the balance that has to be struck between the two, plus the fact that we have to support their efforts here because it is good for our economy, but we have to also ask ourselves the question about at what price, because you know, film production has been going on in Hawaii for 100 years, and for 100 years, you know, the Hawaiian people have been misrepresented for 100 years, and so part of my job is to help people to understand what that truth is about our culture and our history. This conference that we had that Pacific Islanders and Communications sponsored back in 2014 was the first ever Hawaiian Media Makers Conference. And many things came out of that process, and it was a sold out. It was actually right here in these rooms at this hotel. It was a sold out event. We plan to have another one on November 2nd in conjunction with the Hawaii International Film Festival later this year. But the big thing that came out of that conference was a desire on the part of Hawaiian media makers to take back the reins on the telling of our stories and to try to do our very best to educate the world, to educate producers coming to Hawaii, to educate producers engaged in production in Hawaii. And we took a page from the playbook of our Maori cousins in Aotearoa who have more than a decade ago established something called the Brown Book. And it is a Maori and screen production guide. And there was a predecessor to this book that was had a very long Maori name, and it was a beautiful book, very esoteric, not so user-friendly. But what it did was it explained the depth and breadth of the Maori culture in the context of media making. in that country. And they did a revision to that book, which became this brown book here that I have, because they wanted it to be more user-friendly. And we had a symposium last year. We met with one of the PhDs who was involved in this, and we have devised actually, we're launching a project of our own, and it's going to be called something along the lines of a Hawaiian Handbook, a guideline to media making in Hawaii. And the purpose of it, I think, is to really, in a succinct, user-friendly, but authentic manner, to tell our story, to tell the story of our people, to tell the story of our history, to tell the story of our culture here in the islands, especially in the context of media making, so that people around the world and within our own community can better understand what we're all about. And hopefully, and my goal is to see this be used as a tool to provide to each and every producer that is going to engage in Hawaii, and hopefully educate them as to what we're all about, and in an effort to see and support and encourage more authentic representations of our island community and our native culture. And it's an ambitious effort. We do have funding for it, and I'm super excited about that. We hope to have a draft of the book, which will be primarily digital, come out in advance of the second Media Makers Conference, which will be, like I said, November 2nd. But it's something that we're all rallying around and supporting, because I think Hawaiians, as evidenced by this video that Jay took so long ago, I see people in that video that are no longer with us. I see people in that video that are much older than they were back then, and but they are still fighting the fight. They are still marching. They are still trying to let the world know that Hawaii is unlike any other place on the planet. And as a result of that, we need to be getting behind these efforts as much as possible to educate, inform, and make sure that true story gets out, and hopefully to empower the storytellers that are out there who can help us in that effort. So, I don't want to dominate the conversation, but it's one very small aspect of what we're doing at the Hawaii Film Office, and it's something that I think is going to be a game changer for our community and for media making in our community, because like most of the world and people like yourself, when you first came here, you knew nothing. You knew nothing, and that kind of made you vulnerable to a certain degree in terms of the people that you were exposed to and the stories that you were exposed to, the information that you were exposed to. And so I think all of this is in an effort to try to bring truth and authenticity to that for people such as yourself when they come here.
And, I was very lucky because I happened to meet some very special Hawaiian wisdom keepers who mentored me, mentored me in my filmmaking career. So I was able to make some films that really embody Hawaiian thought. Not that I thought that, I didn't think that way, but when somebody like Kumu Lake says that embodies Hawaiian thought, I learned from the native culture, from the Hawaiians, that if it's not in the chants, and it's an oral tradition, so if it's not in the chants, or it's not in the hulas, you can't just make stuff up when you talk about this culture. There are certain places you can't photograph because they're sacred. I mean, can you speak to that a little bit about how someone who come here does not know anything, but there are certain things you just don't do that you might not even think twice about doing someplace else?
I could spend this entire day and this entire evening telling you horror story after horror story after horror story of producers that have come to Hawaii with their preconceived notions, the things that they've learned over the last century in the media around the world about Hawaii, and just not getting it. I'll give you one very quick example. Very, very large, big budget Hollywood film coming here to film, and they wanted to do a sequence that involved shooting in an area where there were known burial caves. And it was a cliff-like area out on the North Shore, and it was under the jurisdiction of Kamehameha Schools. So, which Kamehameha Schools, for those of you that don't know, is a school, it's probably one of the largest, if not the largest, educational charitable trust in the country. It was established by the great-granddaughter of King Kamehameha the Great, and it was intended to provide education for children of Hawaiian ancestry, because our people were dying by the thousands, by the hundreds of thousands, and the Princess Bernice Pauahi Bishop realized that education was really going to be the only way that they could survive. In any event, the Kamehameha had said no to this producer, and he was furious. He got off the plane, and the first phone call he made was to me, and basically, screaming on the phone that, how can you possibly not allow us to film in this place? This is do you know how much money we are spending in this community? He didn't use the word community. This can't happen. We have no other options, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I let him go on, and then I just very briefly and carefully explained to him that there were known burials in this area, that this was one situation where I was not, normally it is my job to go to bat for the producer and to try to get the no answer into a yes answer. And I said, this is one situation where I cannot go back and ask them to reconsider, because we have the ultimate respect for our ancestors and for the iwi, or the bones of our ancestors, and we're just going to have to find you another spot. And he said, but I don't understand. This is like a cliff area. You can't even, how could they bury people there? How could they bury people there? And I'm just like, okay, well, that's really not the question. We'll start again. And I just explained to him over and over again, and slowly but surely he got it. And his tone softened, his attitude, his anger level, his blood pressure, it all just kind of came down as I explained to him the history of our people and what their cultural practices were, and why they hid the bones of their ancestors in hard-to-reach places, because you don't want those bones discovered or inadvertently brought up. So that's just one very, very small example. I have a million of them, but it is a job that is, I've been doing this for 14 years. It is a nonstop, and we have to be vigilant, because we live in such a unique place and our culture is in peril. So, we need to keep talking that good talk. And educating.
Thank you, Donnie. Questions for Donnie?
You talk appropriately about educating the people who come here. Sorry. You talk about educating the outsiders who come here. I am sort of an outsider. I came here 20 years ago. This is now home, my husband and I. And I was lucky in the sense that I finished my PhD here not so many years ago at UH while running an agency downtown. So in a sense, I got educated about Hawaii through that dual process. But one of the things I've discovered is that there's a lot of emphasis and outrage when the outsiders come in and don't understand local culture and the Native Hawaiian culture. But isn't there a larger need to educate our children? How much exposure. I teach adjunct at the UH Business School. And I had a student in my class, for instance, stand up, and I asked them each to introduce themselves as they. And one kid from South Africa, it happened to be, got up and said, "I'm Hawaiian." I said, "No, I don't think so." He says, "No, I live here. I'm Hawaiian." I said, "No, that's not what makes you Hawaiian." And I could not, now he had other issues as well, but that issue kept coming up, and he just could not get his head around the fact that he was not an indigenous Hawaiian person. He was in California, he was a Californian. If he's in Hawaii, he should be Hawaiian, you know. But his classmates didn't seem to have the wherewithal to educate him either. And I just wonder, I don't know to what extent they get exposed or educated about the history of this place, so that it's not just you waging this battle alone.
Well, it should be, and it is in certain situations. Private schools, unfortunately, have the ability to mandate Hawaiian studies in their curriculum. Kamehameha Schools obviously has a Hawaiian curriculum. We have one of the most successful. Actually, the most successful Hawaiian language immersion programs in the country. It is now possible to be educated from preschool to postgraduate, all in the Hawaiian language. And the growth of the native speakers has gone from the brink of extinction back in the 1980s to a thriving 6,500, 7,000 native speakers now, and it's growing more and more every day. We have Hawaiian language is constitutionally, it is on par with English as the official language of Hawaii. People don't know that. People don't understand that, but I completely agree with you that we need to mandate, and this is a legislative issue. The legislature needs to mandate Hawaiian studies as core curriculum that is required for elementary, middle school, and high school age children. They can take Hawaiian language as one of the courses in numerous schools have that as an option, especially with the success of the Hawaiian language immersion program. But it's a deficiency, no doubt, and we need to do more to encourage. And that's why, not to go back to the book, but the idea of having this book, which is going to be predominantly in a digital format, so that we can disseminate the information. We are definitely going to be establishing curriculum around this because, and in fact, the funding is coming from the University of Hawaii predominantly to do this. So we want to see that information get into the schools, because I'm having the conversation every day with producers about when you use the word Hawaiian, you are referring to the native people of this land. You are not referring, it is not like Californian for California. This is Hawaiine, and Hawaiians are the Kanaka Maoli indigenous people of this land who came prior to 1776, settled here back in 400 AD. But I want to encourage everybody while you're here to go to the Bishop Museum. They are going to be unveiling the 237-year-old cloak and helmet of Kalaniʻōpuʻu, who was the chief of Hawaii Island at the time that Captain Cook came here. And they have brought his helmet, his maiole helmet, and the ahu'ula, which is the feather cape, which is made with 20,000 different feathers. And it is on display starting tomorrow at the Bishop Museum, and I would encourage everyone to go there. Kalaniʻōpuʻu gave that cloak and helmet to Captain Cook, and after things went badly for Captain Cook, and he lost his life, the cloak and helmet went away from Hawaii, and they are just now, after 237 years, returning home. That's just a sideline.
Thank you, Doni. And also, that museum has one of two surviving wood carvings of the Hawaiian god Ku. The other one is in Salem, Massachusetts. It was absconded with by whalers 100 years ago. Because most Hawaiian artifacts have been destroyed. over the years on purpose, or sent to museums and that sort of thing. And there's been a movement in the past few years to bring those artifacts back, which is quite encouraging for the culture. Before we move on, I don't know if Alelo, and maybe Vern, you can tell us about this, but we've been approached recently by our Hawaiian community on Maui to begin a series of Hawaiian language programs on our channels. And I would actually like to get to at least one day a week where all of our programming will be in Hawaiian with English subtitles. So that's a goal that we have, because preserving the culture starts with the language. If you take the language away, you can't preserve the culture.
Can I just say one more thing with regard to that? I think it is worth noting that we do have Hawaiian language television in Hawaii that goes along with what you were bringing up. OEV television has been really kind of changing the conversation and trying to move us more toward truly a bilingual community, which is what I would like to see. Similar to what you see in Canada, where everything that they do is in French and Canadian, because it is an official language of that country. So I'd like to see. I would like to see more of that. I'd like to see us going more in that direction. But OEV Television has done an incredible job of perpetuating the language, but also telling the story. The Malama Honua Worldwide Voyage of Hokulea that is ongoing right now. I think Hokulea is in Cuba and is on its way up the eastern coast of the United States and will be in New York in June, I believe. And that is the story that OEV is telling on each and every leg, and they are reporting back to the rest of the world as to how important that voyage is, to not just to our culture and our people, but to the world, really, in terms of awareness and consciousness about conservation and the environment and the oceans. So I just wanted to mention that, because if you're not aware of that, I would encourage you to go to hokulea.com and follow that, and that's largely due to the work of OEV Television.
Thanks so much, Donnie. That was really, really inspiring. Thank you. Yverne, could you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then go on from there?
I'd like to try to get this off. I'm going to have to stand up because I feel like it's rude not to see the people on the other side of the room since I'm hiding behind this podium.
You can go out there. You have to stay back.
No, it's okay. It's kind of an interesting segue to my experience. It was all the way up until maybe 20 years ago that it took me to finally understand my own heritage and history. I was raised in high schools that taught that Queen Liliuokalani was a weak monarch, and she didn't do much to help the Hawaiian people. There was very little true Hawaiian history in the schools at the time I came through. I was also my parents' generation were also taught, no, don't speak Hawaiian. It's not good to speak Hawaiian. And our spirituality was also very much subdued. As for me, I was completely intrigued by our spirituality, and I wasn't able to talk about it and deal with that. So it was a whole different experience. And I was really amazed when I started to find out about my true history. And by the way, I went to Kamehameha schools, and at that time, they didn't even teach our true history. So it was a real eye-opener for me to discover my history. And when I did, it was like turning on a light. And when I came to... Yes. Yes, I learned that in high school, in a Catholic high school. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. I'm just glad that we've moved away from that kind of thinking and that our schools are progressive and championing the true history of our islands. So when I came to Olelo, I discovered a whole new world of possibilities for my people. My past experience has been in the San Francisco Bay Area, where I did a lot of community activism stuff, and I did a lot of business networking. I created and led business networking groups, helping people create business opportunities for each other. So I brought that experience in the corporate telecommunications world and my community activism to Hawaii. Coming to Olelo was an amazing opportunity to put those experiences to work with media. At that time, we didn't have very much Hawaiian programs on the air, but my efforts in the community actually brought just about every flavor of Hawaiian sovereignty and independence into my media center to record their programs. And even though they didn't talk to each other, they all came in and did their programs. So we were able to increase the programming quite a bit, through those efforts. In my current position, at that time I was managing a media center, but in my current position as community outreach manager with Sparky, who is also my cohort, we concentrate on listening to the community and finding out what they're all about, This is not about us going to them and saying, we know what's best for you. It's about us going to the community and saying, what are you all about? Tell me who you are. Tell me what your needs are. And how can we problem solve some of these issues? I was brought into Olelo by Sparky, and my first night on the job, he puts me on the equipment, and I have no idea what the heck is going on, but it's like, you're off and running. But there's something about experiencing something that teaches you something very deep. In our culture, our kupuna taught us by experience, and in a way that's kind of beautiful because it allows each person to process that experience in a way that's right for them. And so I learned early on that experiencing something is very, very valuable. And you're going to learn whatever it is you're supposed to learn for wherever you're at in life. So what I found in our community media center, and at that time we didn't have a TriCaster. We had people that had to have man cameras in the studio. Bringing a minority group into the studio and have them actually be on the camera and see their what they're saying come from the camera all the way through to editing was magical. They were fascinated by it. And that kind of hands-on experience was immensely valuable. The other thing was when people brought their guests into the studio to record their shows, I made sure to find out who were those guests? What are you all about? And have you considered using community access? So a lot of what Sparky and I do at Olelo is building relationships and maintaining relationships. Some of the wonderful partnerships that we have today are a result of years of relationship building. In Waipahu, Sparky would go to community meetings all the time with the Waipahu Community Coalition, and that was maybe more than 5 years ago. Today, they come into the media center to have their neighborhood meetings. I think that community access centers are key community builders and conveners and networking agents for the people that we serve. And I don't think we use that unique ability enough. We're so concentrated on media, and rightly so, because a lot of work goes into it. But using that as a way to connect people is also very important. And so some of the things that we would do is we'd allow community groups to come in, plan their productions or have their meetings, because sometimes when especially the marginalized people don't have a place to meet, being able to come someplace and meet is very important. So we've been very fortunate at Olelo to have quite a variety of programming that we've done, but one of our successes is reaching out to communities that didn't have programming before, like the LGBT community. We were funded to do a PSA workshop with them by the Hawaii People's Fund, and that got them talking to each other, and then eventually they started coming to our studios to record their programming. With the gay marriage issue, Olelo covered their issue from gavel to gavel. Our ability to cover gavel to gavel events in the community is very important to people. So today we covered in this year we covered the Native Hawaiian nation building effort. We covered the proposed merger with Nextera and HECO. So those gavel-to-gavel abilities is very important. But over the years, it became very important to make public access more easily available. So the TriCaster system and multi-camera switching with automatic cameras was a real game changer. We got a lot more people from different diverse groups to come in and use our studios. The downside was you didn't have the production team and the camaraderie and relationship building that we had in the past, but we are getting more people in. Right now, we're on an effort to reach out to nonprofits, and we created a program called PSAs for NPOs, where we invite them in and we have them do a 1-minute PSA. And that was an amazing thing, because we introduced this to the Hawaii Association of Nonprofit Organizations. And every year we used to record their events, but this year we went and we demonstrated the ability to record their PSA, and showing an example of that at their luncheon just went, wow, it just went through the roof. People came in, and they are still coming in to record their PSAs, and it's a great segue to saying, hey, have you thought about coming in and training, coming in and doing shows? So that's been very helpful for us to bring in other voices. The other thing that I would highly recommend is experimenting. And in my profile, I said experiments never fail. And sometimes Olelo doesn't like to hear the word pilot program from Yvonne, because they have no idea what that means. But, you know, if you don't risk and you don't try, you're not going to find solutions. So what I'm going to be doing this year is creating a focus group for the Micronesian community. When I first opened the center at Pololo, reaching out to Micronesians was one of my primary purposes, and senior citizens. I wasn't very successful, and I learned that there are some cultural things I didn't understand about that group. So while I did bring some programming in, we still are not addressing the fact that that community badly needs to dispel myths that the public have about them. So we'll be having a focus group come in from that community to help us understand their needs and to develop a kind of a coalition, so that only one producer is not doing everything. They're doing it as a coalition. Because one of the things I started to understand was doing a show takes a lot of time and a lot of work, but it's not so hard if just one group is doing one show and sharing the responsibility. So I came up with that only because of trial and error and the willingness to, okay, if this doesn't work, let's try something else. And so that's what we're going to do. The other thing we're doing is a brainstorming workshop, bringing in a group over a particular issue to help them create the PSA, because PSA is not that easy, as we know. It's harder to do a 1-minute PSA than a 30-minute show. So they would come in and they would create the content, and I would match them up with the technical people to help them do the PSA. So those are examples of community building things that we could be doing, and you might want to try in your own centers. The last thing I wanted to mention is that these community building relationships we've been doing have been very helpful when we have to go back to the community for support. When we were being challenged by Oceanic Time Warner a few years ago, the ability to call on those relationships and have those people come in and back us up with the legislature was very important. But I would suggest to all of public access stations that we also support ourselves. Tell our own public why we're important, what we're providing, because they take it for granted that they have free speech. And we don't tell our own story enough with our own tools that we have. So I probably skipped a lot of other things I wanted to tell you, but whatever comes out is what's supposed to come out. Is there any questions?
So it sounds like it's a lot of staff-driven projects. How much time do you devote, say, each week to it versus having, people coming in, individuals from the different islands?
I concentrate just on Oahu, But Oahu, each community on Oahu is very different. Each community media center is like a different city. That's how different each of the communities are. I will acknowledge that it is staff intensive, which is why Olelo has the luxury of dedicating Sparky and I just to doing community outreach, because most of our staff are more production oriented. But we're trying to get all of them to learn how to listen, learn how to ask questions when you have clients, and to learn how to build those relationships. But we do take that responsibility, on for them. In the center that I used to run, I had 2 other people that did all the production things, and I concentrated on the community things. But the more successful you are, you could be faced with too much business. So it's kind of a balance that you have to maintain, because you don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. Good question. Any others?
Could you elaborate a little bit more about experimentation? Like if you had a hugely successful one or a huge failure, or, I know there's no failures, but, because you learn, but can you give us an example of an experiment that paid off?
PSAs.
Yeah.
I've been advocating for PSAs for 6 years, and only this year we're doing them. It's just because our own bureaucracies,
Our own inertia.
our own whatevers, we are very good at coming up with our own obstacles.
Right.
So I've learned to experiment and figure out a way around it, thanks to my mentor, Sparky.
Yeah, great. We were talking at lunch about, everyone has one of these. Everyone. This is a camera, and it's a damn good camera, and if it has storage, it's a tremendous communication device. Anyone can send 30, 40 seconds of video via email. You don't even need an app, right? So I had this idea. Why don't we just tell everybody that? And everyone we won't even have to come down the station. They'll just be emailing us this stuff. It'll be great. We'll have all this diversity. Nothing happened. Why? I went, remember when they used to say 70% of people couldn't use their VCR? Maybe that's true. Maybe 70% of people don't really know how to do it, but you're not going to say you don't know how to do it, because people think you're stupid. You can send a photo, but a video, you have to wait. Maybe you have to press a second button, and then you can see that little bar, right?
That's when you're supposed to ask your kids.
Yeah, and the person next to you goes, oh, you can't send video on email. You need this app or that app, right? And so you go, oh, okay. But so what we need to do is we need to do the outreach, right? We need to do the tutorial, the outreach. So I want to do something on Maui called instant correspondent. Everybody's a correspondent. Maybe this week you're talking about bullying, right, with kids. Or maybe next week it's like, if you have a 2-year-old, so we'll give you a coupon for something for the best video. I'm going to do it. I swear to God, on Maui, we're going to do that. We're going to go out to different communities and say, take what you have in your pocket, send it in to us via email, and see what we can do. But we're going to have to put some real effort behind it. It just doesn't happen by itself. And it's like reaching out to any audience, particularly if there are cultural differences. Some cultures don't really want to, they don't want to share, or they feel, isolated. So it really takes an effort to go out and bring people in and say, look, we want to help you. Right? We want your voice if you want to talk to us. Island of Lanai is owned by the richest person in the world, Larry Ellison. He owns 98% of that island. Most people that work on that island work for him at a resort or a gas station or a store or something. They don't want to talk. They look at Maui, little Maui, as this big metropolis, this big empire that's trying to oppress them. They don't like to talk to Maui. They want to stay amongst themselves. So it's really difficult. So we're getting a partnership with the library there because they trust the library. The librarians live there. They don't trust people that don't live there. As soon as I leave Maui, they're like, get out of here, go back to Maui. Right? It's like that. So then the communities are like that too in different places. And even though you may live in a different place like Fresno or California, there are islands within your own communities too that maybe you don't even see that are there. So, it's an interesting dynamic. Thank you, Yvonne. Any more questions for Yvonne? All right, let's go to the rock star, Antoine Hayward.
Yes, and I actually do play in a rock band, so.
Yeah, and a guitar.
Yeah. I'm a guitarist and a DJ.
Licks.
Yeah. So
A guitar what?
I'm a guitarist and a DJ.
Awesome.
And yes, I did buy some vinyl here in Hawaii. I make it a point to, that's how I support the local economy. I go find the nearest record store and put my money down, so.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, that is
I mean, I was spending money in other ways, but like, no.
Yeah.
This is, so yeah, I know I'm gonna be, try to be sensitive, at the time here. You know, we don't have much, and I don't want everybody to dip on me, because at 3 o'clock is fastly approaching. But yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit about, you know, who I am, and I guess, you know, my experience with diversity and learning how to do effective and meaningful community development work. I am currently the Membership and Outreach Director at PhillyCAM, and what that means is I build relationships with organizations in the community, and so nonprofits, collectives, community groups, all that want to you know, build with us. They want to come get training. They want to get their message up. They want to use the channels to raise awareness about the work that they're doing in the community, and then also affect some type of a change, you know, to address issues that they're struggling with. So prior to coming to Philadelphia, I lived in Atlanta for quite some time. For about, I would say, 13 years, and that's how I got into access television there at People TV. But to take it further back, I do want to share really where I come from, and you know, to give an idea of like just how my understanding of this word diversity has evolved, and how it applies to my work, and actually how I really have gotten to the point now where I get a little uncomfortable using it, because I don't feel that it's quite appropriate to like really address what we mean in the work, you know. I'm a native Floridian, and I'm very proud of it. So I'm from another place of quote unquote paradise, if you will. Florida, as you know, it continually has its struggles, just like any other place. But you know, I come from, my points of privilege that I come from, I was able to go to a public school that was a arts magnet, and they had communication arts there. So from the age of 13, I've been doing media. I've been a media maker, you know. So starting off with editing on videotapes, VHS, Hi8, all that good stuff. You know, I've been doing it for quite some time. And I say all of that because, you know, right now a lot of I hear the talk is about, you know, school programs, and the shifts of what people are being taught. And you know, where I'm from now, and even Philadelphia, it's like schools are not even existing anymore, you know, and schools are being privatized, you know, and a lot of, so, you know, what we're finding our work is supplementing, you know, the fact that, you know, the young people aren't even getting, and I had this experience in Atlanta, I had in Philadelphia, the young people aren't even, they're not getting really taught anything. They're being made test makers, you know, so they don't know anything about civics. They don't know anything about, I mean, culture. I mean, there's a lot of things that they're just, that they're curious and they want to know, but it's not there in the classroom. And so our programs, you know, I mean, I was fortunate to have a program that exposed me to a wide array of things. And when I got into this work, I realized, wow, there's other young people. I need to be sharing my knowledge with others in the ways that they aren't able to get that in the school systems, you know, the public school systems. So, you know, and in doing that, when I got to, you know, Atlanta, I started doing work, volunteering on the youth program that was there, and fundraising, and you know, developing curriculum. And through that process, you know, my idea of like, okay, well, how do we build community through this work, and how do we really get all people engaged? It really changed, you know, because of my perception of, you know, diversity from West Palm Beach was like, you know, diversity meant just add more black people, you know. And then when I got to Atlanta, it's like, it's more than just that. It's more than just giving more black people money, or people who run these programs to educate. It's more than that. You know, it's more than just, so down in the Southeast, it's about black and white, you know. But it's like, and that's when people use the term diversity, that's what they're talking about. And I've had to learn that it's like, no, that it's more so it's engaging people who are not in the space and giving them some power, giving them power, not some, but giving them power and space to do some things and to learn, to empower themselves, and to figure out how to work together to affect change. And so I started learning that at People TV in Atlanta when I was working with young people who were, they had all kinds of challenges that I wasn't aware of. And I thought these were just, this is a program where I thought that, these are just, people would assume that they're at-risk youth, they're bad kids, they smoke out back, they cuss, they spit, they don't want to get on the bus, they skip class, whatever. They listen to all this absurd, crazy, lewd music. And, the challenge was, it's like, they didn't intentionally do that though, and that there's an assumption that these kids and I had a beef with some older people who was like, they would say, oh, these kids just don't want to learn. And it's like, no, that's not the case. We have to figure out how to change some things. And one things I want to share with you today is sometimes it takes changing your curriculum, changing your approach to actually address the needs of a program of people who that they want to come into the space and do things. You want them to come into the space and do things to help build up what you're doing, but you don't know. It's like, where do we meet? And it's very awkward. And so, one of the other things that I've learned is that, you have to be flexible in terms of and innovative, creative. And then if you just don't know, find somebody else who does and who's experienced with this work. And so, I've always throughout my career have been blessed, been good with being able to find, these touchstone key people who could give me some advice and share some information about how to work with a group of young people that aren't just coming. When I started off doing education, I was thinking, okay, youth media, this is kids that are they're being bused from school and they want to just make TV shows, and they want to put stuff on the air and they want to have fun. That's what we're going to do. But then it's a whole different thing when you have these social and behavioral issues that are happening before you even get to making a television show. I'm not a social worker. And I'm not trying to really get trained. I want to take some classes, to be honest with you, but I'm not a social worker. But it's so how do you even help these kids be empowered to share a message when they're not eating? They're not eating all day. They get home and the lights may be turned off. Their school may be closed next week, and so I don't know how to deal with this, so I've found people along the way that have helped me. We've developed our curriculum, made some changes as we were going to address these needs and support these young people. Philly Cam, it's interesting. When I got to, I had that one experience in Atlanta working with that youth group, and when I got to Philadelphia, I came to Philadelphia in 2010, and I thought, I was like, okay, well, I went through that rough patch. I've served young people in this way who come from the conventional school system. I served from young people who are almost about to be drop out or be pushed out. All right, I got that. I work with teens, so on and so forth. When I got to Philadelphia, and I always have to talk about this group because they really changed my life and helped me grow more. We had a great partnership, and one of the things, if I could flip down to, I want to show you, we don't have time, I have to skip over, unfortunately, the story. But one of the partnerships, we've done, oh, there it is, and I can't see it. Which one is that on? Yeah, my slides are not connected.
You could look over here.
So, yeah, thank you. I guess I have to transition up here because I was more comfortable over there. But so one of the things, Philly Cam is still new. We're 6 years old, and it's been an advantage because we haven't had a lot of pre-existent grandfathering and all these. This is the way we've been doing it for the past 30 years. We didn't have to deal with that. You know, community outreach is this. This is diversity. This is what we've been, and it just we didn't have to deal. We really had a lot of space to be creative and really start fresh and listen to the people. And so one thing that's really helped us is building these collaboration, these partnerships through collaboratives. So I don't know how many people have meetups or collaboratives, where these different community groups, they get together to address the topic. It's something you have that at home. Okay, go to that stuff. If you don't, if you have it and you've not really engaged in that, go to that, be in the room, meet people, tell them what you do, and start to build relationships. Because that's, as soon as I got to Philadelphia, that's what I did. One of the collaboratives, and this is connected to the youth group that it changed my life, the Philly Youth Media Network. So that was established because there were a lot of youth development groups in Philadelphia that were grappling with this. Yeah, how kind of what Jay's talking about. How do we get how can young people be more engaged in telling their stories during mobile devices or doing art projects or so on and so forth? And how can we work together so that we're not competing on grants? We can build the power that we have of our network. And one group in this is called Yes Philly, Youth Empowerment Services. And Youth Empowerment Services deals with a group, they support a group of young people that, again, I didn't realize it until I worked with them, but I had not really had experience with young people who have been pushed out of school, the conventional school system, or dropped out. And this is a whole category, and this I'm talking about from ages 18 to 23, 25. There are a lot of these, particularly in Philadelphia, there's a lot of young people that fall into this category because last year 22 schools closed in Philadelphia, but they're continuing to build prisons. That is the core issue where I live now. And the videos and the messages and things that the young people are making to combat, they're addressing that issue. They don't have a place to go to school. It's like they don't have water. You know, it's really getting down to some core issues. But Yes Philly, these there was 6 young people, and what we learned through this process, I learned about listening. And I learned about respecting process, too. And I learned about time. You know, everything Yvonne mentioned, it takes time to build this relationship. We did a documentary project where the 6 young people at Yes, what it does is they do creative arts. They offer creative arts training as a supplement to GED training. So they're helping these young people who didn't graduate. They didn't get a diploma. They can come back in and they can work, get trained to pass the GEDs, but they also have art that they can engage with in some way. And so it was like, oh, well, let's partner up and there's a night grant that's out here. Let's see if we can get it and we can do some quote unquote, citizen journalism project with these young people. And what happened was we ended up creating this 30-minute documentary that really it makes you cry. It makes me cry of the how genuine the story is that they tell about their experience or why they're no longer in school, and the fact that they want to be educated and they want to work and they want to be self-sustaining. But to get to that content that was so moving, there was this whole process. And a process that began, and one thing that I learned, bless you, that it had to begin with listening. And I think that's what you talked about, where you coming into a community, and the one major thing that I want to leave with you today, I think Vern touched on this, is engaging with the group and not in a way of being their savior, but really being, I want to talk, talking about equity. So if we were to build equity and to really do some engaging work, this room would be broken up in a circle and we'd be all sitting around. That's what we did every day when the Yes kids got together. And we listened. We facilitated and supported them. We were advocates and we constantly let them know that. But we didn't tell them well, this video has to be about this and your story has to be about that. We didn't come in with an agenda. So it was really about breaking it up. What's the story you want to tell? And then what they were telling was very traumatic. So again, I'm not a social worker, but I've at work had a chance to be partnered up, and this is the brilliance of the partnerships, is we were working with a teacher from Yes, who is very gifted in terms of like this, in managing group dynamics and doing the one-on-one and helping. So when someone would go and have a traumatic moment because they're trying to figure out their story and they're grappling with it because nobody ever talked to them about this before, she helped guided us through this, you know? So you have to get people on the team who can, but then when they, Mr. Antoine, how do we cut this and how do I set my endpoint and can I convert, how long is this gonna, I was like, I got you. Can you do a shot like, I got you. Get your light right, I got you. Audio, mic it right. That was me, that was my role and Laura's role. So, but I always have to say that, unfortunately I can't, we don't have the internet, so I can't show the clip of the video, but if you go to our Vimeo site, so you look on PhillyCam, just Google PhillyCam Vimeo or go to Vimeo and look up PhillyCam. All of our internally produced projects are up there, our content, all the content that we work with youth, immigrant communities, PSAs, like Yvonne said, has been huge for us. Doing live streaming is huge for us. That's made us a popular kid on the block, going out into communities and live streaming from events. We're now using, to get in a little tech speak, we're using, we just got LiveView. So we're doing, yeah. We got the little box.
So you're streaming channel and web?
Yep.
Both?
Yep. But, you know, if you go onto Vimeo, and you can look at all of our content, but you look up the Push Outs documentary, and we did this for 2 years. But the first year was really something else, and really inspiring. And that, you'll see the stories that came out from our young people. And what's that? It's called Push Outs. So they didn't really subscribe to the term dropout because they were like, I didn't drop out of school, I was pushed out.
Nice.
You know, there were kids who.
Is that the name of the doc that you were talking about?
Yeah.
Push Out?
There were, yeah. So, and there were kids that went to school, and one story was that the kid, his cousin put a gun in his backpack and he didn't know. And he was on time, he was going to school, going through the metal detector that, like everybody else did, not saying shouldn't be there, but that's how they had to do. And the metal detector, of course, went off, and by regulation of the school district, they found the gun, and he was out. No more school. So where does that put him? You know, and then the other issue that our young people are fighting, you know, back in Philadelphia, it's in, okay, when you get put out of school, then you got to go work a job at Popeyes. What are they paying at Popeyes? What's minimum wage now? What, $7.50? Right. So now this whole, they can't sustain off of that. Dad is locked up 9 times out of 10, you know, and mom is trying to hold on, and then they get a job at Popeyes for $7.50. No one's taught them about, you know, opening up a checking account. Nobody's talked to them about rent and how you have to pay $8 bajillion to Comcast if you want to see something on TV, you know, how to use your, so how to sustain yourself. So there's all of these compiling issues that, you know, many people say that it's systematic that's happening. But there's a lot of young people that are getting pushed out because of that. So, and then that was just one story. You know, Mary, who is another young person, she's actually, after this documentary, she had a baby, but she's gone to school and is really, you know, working, and actually has become like a self-enterprising, you know, and she finally grasped her like talents as a photographer and a media maker and continued on with that, you know. So, you know, and that's just some of the power. So that's just one other examples of programs that I have, and I'm gonna stop and we can open it up. But you know, because I've said a lot. But this is I go back to this community coalitions and collaboratives. They have enabled us to deepen our roots in the community. So it took 27 years to get PhillyCam to happen, right? So the original ordinance for public access was signed in 1983, but because of trying to figure out who's going to pay for this doggone thing called public access, it took 27 years of fighting to make it happen. But once we've happened, and we've been able to actually, and I'll say this is a privilege for us, enjoy the benefit of having all new equipment that has served as attractive to a lot of communities. And then not being there, people really wanted it. So we've got people coming out of the woodworks without even really admittedly doing, like, investing a lot of money in like campaigns, like wrapping buses or anything like that. Because they want to communicate. And these collaboratives have even led to some great fundraising for us. And that's another little secret I'm going to share with you. So going to the like technology learning collaborative, which is, it's all about, we address digital inclusion issues and just aligning ourselves in that space and not just being over, well, we're public access. What does digital inclusion have to do with us? What does broadband access have to do with us? We don't hold on to that. So Bread and Roses, which is a group that supports social justice organizations in the community, they do town hall about gender justice issues, re-entry, citizen re-entry into the community. We just did one on gentrification. So this is really great, and these have led to us working with other organizations that have said, you know what, we want Philly Cam to just help us develop curriculum. We'll pay you for it, and we want you to help us just create our videos for our galas, for our ed trainings, all of that. You know, so yeah, I highly encourage that. But I'm going to, and I covered a lot of some of the lessons learned here, but. One last thing that I do want to, and mention, and I'll sit down so we can open this up. I've been really grappling with is addressing the issue of supporting. So when we say engaging diverse communities, engaging and helping people, building equity in our space, is thinking beyond too cultural. Thinking about how do we work with people who are disabled? So captioning is a big thing that we're focusing on right now. Building out one of our 4 channels as being a native language channel, all right? And then also, is a big thing for me is supporting and being an advocate for people. And when we say disabilities, it's not just physical disabilities, it's emotional also. People who have suffered emotional trauma, psychological trauma, that come into our space because we are a beacon of hope, to them. Philly Cam is right on the street in Center City, and we get a lot of, and it's colorful and it's fun, and we get a lot of people who are like, I want to be a part of this. But they also are bringing in troubles, things that have challenged them into the space, and we're not social workers. So how do we support them and be advocates for them? So again, we're not that, we partnered with the library, and thanks to Tony Riddle and Brick, we got this example from them. We got social workers to come and actually do a one-day training with our staff, and we want to continue that. And I encourage you, and the libraries usually mostly have, I don't know how it is here, but libraries and schools and other public serving institutions, rec centers, they have social workers on contract. If they're not there all the time, they're there. And we're doing public serving work. So when we went to the library, they were like, sure, yeah, that makes sense. So that's just one of the, but it has encouraged, I had to learn things about helping these members learn how to set boundaries and how to have set some mutual terms to things in our space, and that's been challenging for me to do, but I had to be flexible about it and work with them, but it's been successful.
That is awesome. That whole thing, I never even thought of that before, the whole library social worker connection. That is phenomenal. What a huge thing is that in and of itself. I know we're running a little bit over, but that's fine with me because there's really nothing next. So let's open this up, and anyone that wants to leave can, but let's stick around here for a little bit.
I wanted to just add one more thing. Thank you for that, because I think it got me inspired too, and talking about our youth and talking about the needs of our youth and the diverse needs of our youth. I think going back to the question that you had about how do we educate more at that youth level, I think we have to meet them on their terms. And this goes right into what you were saying in terms of providing an avenue that is going to be interesting to them and engage them, as opposed to a textbook approach, or even just your standard curriculum in a school, which may be authentic, it may be true, filled with truth, but they're not going to engage with it because it doesn't appeal to them. I wanted to mention that in this very room, when we were having the Hawaiian Media Makers Conference, we had internet problems back at that time too, which is very interesting to me. But there was a woman, an Alaskan Native woman, who helped develop the first digital game for the Inuit based on a 10,000-year-old Inuit story. and it's called Never Alone. And they matched up the incredible talent of the digital gaming community, which is a multi-billion-dollar business, with the Alaskan Native elders who were passing that story on, and they, in the spirit of the greatest Disney and Pixar animation, this is an absolutely beautiful digital game, and it is so counter to the violent digital games that are out there that are feeding the minds and inspiring the minds of our children. But I just wanted to encourage you to take a look at this online, Never Alone, and know that there are opportunities like this to reach our children based on platforms and media that they want to engage in.
The other I want to just quickly add on to about so engaging young people is just even something simple as like having the youth into the space and doing some fun. If you don't have youth already into your space, or you're not working with them already, maybe it's not even the best thing. Is starting off doing media, like teaching them like how to set in and out points in Adobe. You know, maybe it's, hey, let's go outside and take five pictures of how you're feeling today. What do you want to do in this parameters? Like, what do you all want to talk about? What's happening at school? How can we, let's go record some audio. It's getting them into the space and just doing things is what, and that's what we had to, I think when we were doing the Yes Philly project, I came at, again, that was my learning moment. I came at them with all right, we're going to learn, here's how you frame a shot, and here's how no, that was not even, it was like, oh, wait, we're not there yet. We need to just hang out and connect, and so there's a lot of power in starting at that point, and looking, researching, and coming up with activities of just being together.
I wanted to thank everybody for sharing. Very informational, and I feel like I'm going to walk away with a lot from your contributions. I'm a videographer and a filmmaker here in Oahu, and I've originally came here and got into public access through Olelo. In New York is where I'm from, but I've been here about 6 years. And back in New York, I didn't realize that this was accessible to me. So I'm very grateful for what Olelo has given me. Some of the productions that I do are connected to the community, and pretty much all of them basically is to capture the essence of the culture of what's going on here. I met a couple yesterday, and they were twins. They just happened to be twin Orthodox priests. And it was, yeah, with the big white beard. Amazing. Yeah, we just struck conversation. I'm like, how are you guys twins, and how are you priests? But I wanted to capture their story. So I sent them an email, and they're only here for a week, so I'm hoping to sit with them. But it's things like that, having the accessibility to call up Olelo and be like, can I get a camera? I have these two priests that I want to record. And here in Oahu, since we have so many people passing through, there's such a beauty in that culture. The culture is diverse in that everybody that comes here, they have a story. And those two priests, they were here about 30 years ago. And they were like, oh, it's changed so much, and this and that, and I wish it would be different, and the way it was back then, and I'm thinking in my mind, what we do by capturing this moment, we preserve it, and we help them to know what it is that they experienced, and what we capture now, we're helping future generations. And I had a question for Donnie in particular, because I'm up and coming. I'm made a couple connections, and I've been doing some productions that took me over to China, possibly going to London next September. And some of the stuff that I do is documentary. And I love being able to capture people's stories authentically, without filter. But also, being sensitive enough to, distinguish between, what's valuable and what's not. Some of the resources here, I was wondering if you could kind of point me in a direction to be able to tap into maybe a collective like they have in Philly and so forth that could help me to focus in my skills and talents and really tune into that. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I love documentary film, and we support it every day. I encourage and support it in our world. I'll leave you with this. because this is our resource Bible, and this would be able to provide you with some sense of what's out there. There are things developing every single day. They've got these digital consortiums down in Chinatown now. There's one out in Kaimaki and Wailai, where they're gathering places for like-minded filmmakers such as yourself. So I would encourage you to just get out there and network as much as you can. I would join the Film and Video Association of Hawaii if you're not already a member. They're more kind of a virtual group because everybody's busy doing their own things. But just networking, super important. And actually, let me just give you our web address. It's filmoffice.hawaii.gov, and that is kind of like your first stop when you're interested in finding out about locations and permits, especially if that's something that you're going to need. That all is processed through our office. But there's a whole hub that's been developed in the Kaka'ako area that you might be aware of, where it's just kind of this resurgence of creativity and filmmaking and art and food and on and on and on. So anyway, they're out there. So I just want to encourage you to continue your quest, and I hope you can tell the story of these two guys that you stumbled upon, because that's brilliant. It's brilliant.
And just shoot everything. Just keep shooting.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of really good documentary filmmakers in the islands.
Yeah, very.
Hawaiian International Film Festival, Maui Film Festival.
Get yourself involved with the film festivals. Go to the film festivals. Go to the Maui Film Festival. Go to the Hawaii International Film Festival, the Ohina Short Film Showcase, and just meet all those people and participate in that process. See movies, as many as you can.
That's why I love Netflix. I like the DVDs, the old school. Any more? Because
I just want to say, first of all, I want to applaud all of you guys that are up there. I think what you are doing is such a profound thing. And Antoine, what you were saying, totally resonates with me. I'm originally from Chicago, so I understand as far as coming from an inner city and how a lot of times people label and they just think that people are just disenfranchised and they don't want to do anything, and look at them in their community without understanding the roots of why things are a certain way. But as far as outreach, my day job, I'm a police lieutenant, and a couple of years ago I put together a youth forum, and what we did was I moderated the whole thing, and I took the approach of, instead of me talking to them and telling you this is what you guys should talk about, what I did was I asked these kids, and they were 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and I asked them, what do you guys want to talk about? So I actually promoted it on the radio, and I ended up having 8 panelists. And basically, I did phone interviews with each of them. I had cue cards, and I wrote down even when they came, I had them write down what they wanted to talk about. The parents came, they dropped them off because we had Hoike filmed it, and we just had a forum. And I wasn't in uniform, and we did it at our KPOW Youth Center, which is a police activities league. So what I would suggest as an outreach is to maybe go to the different police activity leagues in your community, because a lot of times people don't think about police, and that's an untapped area, I think.
Yeah.
And I think you can also kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak, from the perspective of there's always this, and it shouldn't be that way, but there's always this us versus them mentality. Mm-hmm. But I think if we connect and people see, police officers start to know, okay, these kids have deeper problems than just, and once again, we're not all social workers, but we kind of have to be.
Right.
It's just the nature of the beast, but you start to learn, okay, police officers aren't all bad, and the reason that they feel this way and they have to do the things this way is because this, that, and the other. And then the police officers maybe they were raised in a suburb and then they just get plunked into the inner city, and the only interaction that they've ever had with disenfranchised youth or people is what they see on the media and what they see in the music and see on television. So they can start, relating to people on a different level. And then you're building this rapport with each other. So I just wanted to throw that out there as far as maybe looking at the feasibility of any police activities league to
Awesome.
use that.
That's
Anybody else?
fantastic.
Well, we'll leave it there. I'll just say one thing. We're all in the same canoe.
Yep.
Thanks.
Mahalo, everyone.
Mahalo.
Can I do, I guess, real quick PSA before you all leave? I want to also acknowledge that if you may or may not know, the ACM, I serve on the board for the National Board of the Alliance, and we actually have, there's a group that works to address inclusion, equity, and engagement issues on the national level. And how this is actually realized throughout our practices on the national level. So people a lot of times come up to me and they talk about, there's a lack of representation or people who are leaders in our field in terms of the activities that we do at conferences, that they're narrow or they're shifted. And I'm saying this is a lot of feedback that I get when I attend conferences, and that they can be a little bit more opened up and inclusive in terms of who's speaking and how we're approaching things. And so the Inclusion, Equity, Engagement Caucus, it meets at the national conference. So if you're in Boston, I will be there with a bunch of other smiling faces, and you can attend that. But we also get together. It is a space, and I just want to let you know that the ACM board on the national level is really, really values and is trying to figure out how we can be more inclusive in the work. So we understand that there's a lot of people that are not represented at our convenings, and that's from fields, that's geographic. It's not just white and black. And so that's the work that I do on the board level, and I just wanted you to know that there's a space for that if you want to participate or you have ideas to share. Thanks.
Great. Thanks again. Thank you, panel.
They want to take a quick picture.
Thank you.